All right, everybody, let's talk about something really cool in Moto 901, MeshFusion. Probably heard a lot about this, and you may have used it in the past when it was a plugin for Moto, but right now with 901, it's included. Yay! So over here in the Model tab, down at the bottom, the Fusion menu can be found. And all the tools are now nicely integrated. You'll also see a schematic Fusion up at the very top, right up there. And we'll get to that in a little bit. What Fusion is, it's a Boolean operation. It's a live Boolean operation. And if you're not familiar with Booleans, they are quite simply a way to intersect, cut, and combine objects. So here I've got two cubes. Let's press O, go to inactive meshes, and make the inactive same as active so that they're both shaded. And if I go to geometry and I go to Boolean down here, which has been in Moto all along, and I choose Boolean and I choose subtract this cube from the driving mesh, meaning the background, click OK, and then turn that mesh off, you'll see that I've just cut away those two. Now if I do it again, let's do it like this, and make sure we get back, just undo, select this cube, and we go geometry, Boolean, and subtract. We go the opposite way, and we use that to cut out. Okay, but it gets kind of limited, and it's great for windows and doors, and that's pretty much what I've used it for. But if you try to cut a hole, let's say in this corner, it'll just completely fall apart, and you can't often bevel the edges and make smooth transitions and things like that. So that is where MeshFusion comes in. So let's take a look at that. So down here in the Fusion tab, you'll see New Fusion, Open Schematic Fusion. You're going to see a geometry library, select mesh sources, and so on. I'm not going to go through every one of these saying what they are. You can read. Let's just get right down to it. Well, how do you use this? Well, there's a couple important things to understand. Is that you want to be able to use pretty much any of your meshes, but they must be quads. All right, so polygons made up of 4 vertices. However, we also want them in multi-res. So if I open up the basic tab, and let's hold the shift key to add a cube, but then under polygon mode, I hit the D key and then shift D and make this faceted. Okay, now when I mouse over, you can see it's blue. I hit the tab key, sort of this amberish purpley color. Tab key again, but if I go shift tab, still looks the same, but now I'm in multi-res, and those polygons are green when I mouse over. All right, so if I double click, not double click, if I just right click and duplicate this cube, W, move it over, R, scale it down a bit. Now I've got 2 subdivided cubes, and I could have made them square just like before as well. So this is the small cube, and this is the large one. And what I want to do is subtract the small from the large. So select the small, then select the large. We'll go back to Fusion and simply just press New Fusion. Now there's a number of different things that this can do, but quite simply, keep everything at default right now. You can name this 2 cubes, and we want to subtract the first item from the others. It'll think for a minute, and what you'll get is that beautiful cut. All right, so let's turn this off for a minute, get that out of the way. So what's happening here is that MeshFusion is intersecting those in any way we want, cutting, combining, and it's also leaving this cool little tree right here. And there's a number of things we can do with that and make this interactive. So I can take this small cube right here, right click, duplicate it if I want, maybe squash it down a little bit and move it over. And how would I add this now? Let's say I want to subtract this some more. Well, the way I can do it is by selecting it and dragging it onto that bottom of the tree. And that adds it to my subtract menu. So let's take a look at the tree real quick. The schematic tree, well, I'm going to call it a schematic tree, but schematic is actually going to be more of our node base when we get to that one. This is just the tree. We've got subtract, and that's the bottom one. Then we've got union, and then we've got an intersect. So let me undo, and I'll show you what happens. If we take this now and we drop it to the middle, we intersect. So now we're seeing just the combination of those two shapes. If we click and drag it to the top, we'll blend it in. And we get a nice addition, which is really just amazing that we can do this. Now, the other cool thing about this is that these Boolean meshes are live. So I can keyframe these over time and suddenly have something open up or cut or display. Great for visual effects, great for architecture and machinery and things that I want to show revealing on the inside. And once you know how to use these tools and you understand them, you can go ahead and model in such a way that you would have that flexibility that you would need something visible inside or on the outside or just a skin layer and so on. All right, so there's a few other things, obviously. When you have your meshes together and you have this basic MeshFusion, you can turn on and off the tree visibility. You can turn the source off, and the source is the part that's cutting or intersecting whatever is adding up in this tree value here. And sometimes you just want to get those out of the way. You can also cycle the mesh opacity. Fusion view settings, you can turn those off. And you can even just turn off all viewport settings, which I like to do, just so you can really truly see the model without all the subdivision lines and polygon lines and so on. And you can put them back on. Now, there's another thing called the strip. And we're going to use this occasionally. It does a pretty good job by default. But the strip is where you can actually come in here and you see how I mouse over and I get that nice highlighted edge. When I click on that, I get a channel haul command. And I can select sibling substrips, select all strips, select loop A all the way around. And I need some strip updating. Okay, there we go. So it just connected those for me. And then if I open up the channel haul, what I can do then is adjust those strips. And then I can, of course, adjust the profile and so on. So it's a great way to make interesting, sharp edges and very specific edges as well. So for something like this, I'd probably keep it just kind of default like that, a little bit tighter. Spacebar just turns that off and just click to deselect. Let's go over to render, just see what this looks like. And you'll see it's actually a very clean, two cuts right from that very simple model. And MeshFusion is as simple as that to get you going. But there's a lot more it can do, so let's move on to the next video and I'll show you how that works.